Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's Thursday, November 24th, NBA Sharp Betting Breakdown here on the Advantage Sports Betting Podcast. I am your host, Michael Fiddle. We have a four-game NBA slate to go over, and we are going to start this off right at the top, mentioning what I just bet during that intro. This Jazz Spurs over 222.5. We will get to it, but it might not even be there still available in about 20 minutes as we start to go through this slate. You can already see action starting to be taken on this game, and this line starting to light up on the odds screen as we share the FanDuel odds board and go over this slate. I'm going to go back to the top. We're going to go in chronological order. We're going to go through it the right way, like we always do. But rare moment right there where I bet something during the intro and wanted to give it out right at the top. Let's start with the Detroit Pistons visiting the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets came out as a 1 or 1.5 point favorite, and now we are seeing the Pistons as the universal 1 point favorite. I played the Pistons minus 105 on the money line. So we've often talked about how the difference between the 1 and either the 1.5 or moving to 0.5 and then obviously 0.5 to pick them to minus 0.5. None of that matters. That's all the same as having an NBA money line. But then the move back onto -1, those are half moves that are all worth 6 cents. So when I saw minus 105 available, when there was plus 1.5 at the time at minus 120, I knew that I had 2 jumps in that line movement with it, which was worth 12 cents. So really that minus 120 on plus 1.5 was actually worth minus 108 in a money line. And therefore the best available odds for me at the time was to just take the Detroit Pistons minus 1.5 and forego the points and just play the money line. Here we are. Now the Pistons are favored -1, minus 110 with a money line of minus 112. We get another situation where the money line, if you're going to play into it now, money line represents best available odds, at least for what I'm showing here at FanDuel. This is a solo show on Thursdays. We do not have Drew Johnson in the building, so going to go a little bit slower and make sure I get all the best lines because I can't be looking up things as I throw it to him. Yes, that I believe this to be the best available line for the Detroit Pistons. Minus 112 at FanDuel is the best bang for your buck if you are still trying to bet the Pistons. Injury report wise for this game, we know that the Charlotte side is Trey Mann is been questionable, but he played and finished and actually played over LaMelo Ball to end the most recent Charlotte game. Doubtful Asar Thompson, and I think the doubtful to Asar, I still don't think we've seen him this season. It's going to be very exciting when he comes back. Of course, Nick Richards, Mark Williams, also injuries that we've seen on the Charlotte side pretty much the whole season, but very excited for Asar to come back. Few people chiming in. Curious Sports Media says, I'm just here for the bacon. It is the morning. We can make a nice bacon, egg, and cheese, or we can try and make some bacon on the show. Sam says, Rockets was such a great spot last night. Ended up taking some alt lines, so thank you for insight on that game. Bada boom, bada bing. Going up 21 in that fourth quarter. Sam with some alt lines. Have to feel pretty good. Obviously, I was very concerned being up 21 going into a fourth quarter with the way things have gone recently. So I'm on the Detroit Pistons money line minus 1.5. I also played this under minus 221, under 221.5. Let's see where that is available. Nowhere except for this FanDuel at minus 112. So that's another spot that I would jump into. This line has bounced between 219.5 and 221.5. I played the under as what I think to be the correct direction in this. We've talked about the Detroit Pistons having a strong half-court defense. So this is going to be one where the efficiency of Charlotte Hornets 3-point makings is going to be what has to tank this. or Tim Hardaway and Malik Beasley just launching shots for the Pistons. There's been a few times I've played Pistons overs, and THJ and Malik had something else to say about it. But like playing Detroit Pistons unders, they do slow the ball down on offense and set up the pick and roll with Cade Cunningham. And then they also slow you down on defense and have a really good half-court set. So Detroit Pistons money line and under 221.5. Last thing that I want to talk about this game is something that I've mentioned quite often is that the ones, like +1, -1, it's the 13th most common outcome in the NBA. Key numbers are incredibly important. So whenever I bet into something around the ones, and even though I got positive movement, 3/4 of a unit bet. When I was betting the Houston Rockets, as Sam did last night with us, that line was -5.5 when I played it, and it would end up landing at 6.5 and even some 7s popping up. So we know 6 to be the most important number. So Rockets -5.5 as it moves to 6.5, 1.25 unit bet. Detroit Pistons on the money line, 3/4 of a unit bet. Not all closing line value is worth the same. Not all closing line value is worth the same. Here we have 7 cents on the money line versus moving through the most important key number. Probably worth about 15 cents in that case. Okay, let's talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the Toronto Raptors. This line has been 7 at FanDuel pretty much the whole time. Other spots bouncing between 7 and 6.5. I was pretty surprised to see last night 6.5s be showing up. Now we're getting 7.5s across the board. So circa 7.5, BetMGM 7.5, Fanatics 7.5, Bookmaker 7.5. However, a bunch of 7s also still available. DraftKings, FanDuel, Bet365, BetRivers, all hanging the 7. Trusting this Wolves team as road favorites has been difficult this season. Not been a direction that I've played into often. And we also have Scotty Barnes, questionable on the injury report after missing a lot of games previously. I forget exactly what his injury was, but he got hurt like the first or second game of the season. Quickly got hurt, and Barnes got hurt for the Raptors very, very early this season. They could have come out the gates looking like a slightly more competitive team. However, those injuries befuddled them, and some late game collapses. We know we've shown those RJ Barrett shots on the podcast here both of the times they've played the Denver Nuggets. So we'll see about that 7. If it starts coming to 6.5, I would take it as signs Barnes might play. As we see it going to 7.5, I would think that's a signal Barnes might not play. Obviously, when he was upgraded to questionable, that's when we saw the 6.5 showing up. So maybe more betting action. I bet the over 225.5. That is still available here at FanDuel as well. Benefit of doing the show at 9 a.m. is that sometimes we get these good lines still available to us. This was as high as 227, and I would imagine some of that Scotty Barnes news also impacts the total because he's a great defensive player. And on the Timberwolves side, we have Mike Conley, who left their most recent game with, I think, a left foot injury, and Dante DiVincenzo is also questionable for this game with, I think, back soreness. The real one for the total here is DiVincenzo. Conley's a pretty good defender. And he's shooting horribly this season. Like, horribly. I think he's shooting 31.9% on the season. And slightly better than that on 3-point attempts, but still not proficient and efficient and up to par with Mike Conley. He's been dealing with a wrist injury, which I think he's been outspoken about, that he's not going to get it corrected until the end of his career. And there's got to be maintenance plans that happen with Conley's left wrist, and he's a lefty, so that's a shooting wrist. He also has a foot situation going on. So whether Conley's in or not, I don't think it's going to have big impacts on the total. It's the DiVincenzo and the Scotty Barnes news. Ian drops in that it is back spasms and a toe sprain. Shout out me for remembering that from the last Minnesota Timberwolves game. DiVincenzo finished the game, was not taken out, shot 5 of 10 from 3-point range, and that's why we need him in if we're playing it over. If we are missing Mike Conley, then like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, DiVincenzo start to play more. Maybe we even see more Rob Dillingham, the rookie that the Minnesota Timberwolves acquired from the San Antonio Spurs in a draft night trade. And so he's just such a quick scorer and fast moving, increased pace kind of player. So I wouldn't mind seeing some Dillingham out there, probably way worse on defense than Conley too, and probably causes a pace up situation. So show me the money on DiVincenzo and Dillingham playing more. And Scotty Barnes, he's probably net neutral. We are seeing that under drop. Bet 365 just moved it to 221 themselves. And then in terms of this total that we're looking at here, it's available 225.5 to the over at FanDuel and Bet Rivers. DraftKings just moved it to 226. MGM has it 225.5. 365 has it 225.5. So a lot of options where you could still get it. Some sharper offshores still at 226. So I would think this begins an over spot. No, I don't go a full unit on the over here. This was also 3/4 of a unit. I believe all of my totals were 3/4 of a unit plays on this slate. There are definitely times when I will go full units on totals. There are definitely times. There's one of them pending right now for Friday's slate. Maybe we will get to it in a minute or two, but there's a 2-unit play on a total that I think is a bit ridiculous on tomorrow's card. So we will, Nick, appreciate you being here. JB says, love that unit size segment. Gold nuggets of information to say not all plus CLV are equal. Yep. CLV relative to a total, not the same as a spread. Generally, the spread is worth twice as much. Now, then you're looking at the value of key numbers within that, and you could say it's pretty much worth twice as much to move through, or 1.5 times as much to move through the 6 as opposed through 1. So that's the value of key numbers. If people want to sign up for the WHOP, you don't only get my picks in real time sent out to you. You also get the key numbers charts for the NBA spreads the last 3 seasons, as well as NFL sides and totals for the last 3 seasons. That information is nowhere publicly available. There is outdated information that is incorrect available. There's information from like 2019 to 2022 for the NFL. And if you want to say, oh, it's only been a few years, I could just basically use it as the same, you'd be wrong. Trust me, we have the data. All right. Halfway through today's show, we got 150 people here in the chat. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Like I said, whether you're on your way to work, already at work, or maybe you're just simply catching us later in the day, do me a favor. Hit the like button on the tweet if you are watching on Twitter. If you are watching on YouTube, please hit the like and drop a comment there as well. And if you're listening on a podcast stream, please leave us a review. These things go a long way. We are seeing tremendous growth in the channel, and we'd like to keep up the momentum. Now, the betting results have to match the momentum in the show. Last night was a good night. Let's keep it up. Spurs and Jazz take on in San Antonio. Repeat matchup of something that happened about a week and a half ago, where the Jazz would end up having a little bit of a fourth quarter comeback and winning that game by 1 point. So possible little revenge spot for the Spurs. Wembanyama is out. Devin Vassell is out. Walker Kessler is out. Jordan Clarkson, I think, is questionable. Zach Collins questionable. Chris Paul is going to play. And I believe Collins and Clarkson probably lean playing again. Sohan also in on the injury report. That's been a long time thing that he's been dealing with. So huge that we get these injury reports from Ian dropped in the chat. If you're even looking for an injury report of a game we're not talking about, look at the comments in the YouTube section. Every up-to-date injury is in there in real time. So notice I said Wembanyama. Notice I said Walker Kessler. And we also know Sohan. So two of the best in the league, and Sohan, who's been compared to Dennis Rodman at times for the dyed hair and the lack of offense and the good rebounding, but maybe not the rim protection. We have two of the league's best rim protectors out for this game. This has to become an over spot, and we're seeing that in the movement. The reason why I stopped the show to say, hey, let's pop the over right now is because as that intro was going, Circa moved from 222.5 to 224. FanDuel sitting there 222.5. DraftKings 223.5 minus 112 to the over. MGM 223.5. 365 223.5. Bovada and Bet Online with changes in the last 10 minutes sitting at 223.5. So we are seeing this over steam happen pretty much across the books. Bet Rivers 222.5. Juice to the over moved in the last 10 minutes. So that's why I thought this line at FanDuel might move. That's why I like playing the over at 222.5. There is market movement across the board, starting with some of the books that we most respect. And then you're also seeing the basketball angle of missing some of the best rim protectors in the league. I also played the Spurs minus 4.5. Why did I do that? That fucking sucks. That's because I saw the Kessler news and the Clarkson news, and then there was like a 8-minute gap, 10-minute gap, and then the Wembanyama news came. So when did I bet this? Right in that fucking 10-minute gap. I would not recommend tailing it now. I will say if the strategy component of having a minus 4.5 ticket when the line is at -3 is a do nothing situation. Cross your fingers and hope that the Spurs either cover or end up just doing well in this game at the start. And if I'm watching it live, betting off of it live. But I will not, on the reverse side, take a Jazz +3 and open up a Polish middle where if the game lands at 4, your boy is fucked. Won't happen. I will not do it, especially when we're talking about numbers 4 through like 9 in the NBA. Those are dangerous, dangerous, dangerous spots to open a Polish middle. And if I believe in the gambling gods so much that I switched my shirt from a black shirt to a white shirt so that we stopped speaking like I'm at my own funeral in terms of my bets and end up saying, nah, we're gonna get this money, we're gonna have some winning slates. Then like you're also speaking it into existence that the 4 is gonna end up happening. So I absolutely despise Polish middles and the variance of NBA games that it's a game of runs, that you still have the home team as the favorite, that they still have some veteran players in Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes that'll be out there. They do have some good young players in Stephon Castle that will be out there. Keldon Johnson will be out there. So I think this is like, don't overreact and immediately dump. We've also seen the line go down to 2.5 on the injury news and then steadily take action back up to the 3 pretty much everywhere. So again, maybe people are fading the injury report. We're even seeing 3.5s right now at Bet Rivers. So hold the horses. Don't dump a bad ticket. Hope for variance because the value of sunk by just accepting a Polish middle. So you're accepting loss and running the risk of catastrophic loss. There's times when you'll dump a ticket and you're accepting loss with no chance of catastrophic loss, right? If you have the over 222.5 and you want to dump it with some under 222.5. Ain't no way it's landing at, a number that exists between those two numbers, because that's not mathematically possible. So when you lose CLV in an NBA spot, don't overreact. Hopefully your schedule allows you to watch the game and then bet off of it live, or then just hope for good variance coming in your favor and the favored home team still winning and just covering the spread by a 1.5 more than their market projected to. The Orlando Magic and the Los Angeles Lakers, last game on the card, take the court in LA, this time in the Crypto. They played last night, the Magic against the Clippers in the Intuit Dome, and now they move over and they go to Crypto. So no travel for the Magic. I'm sure they're staying at the same hotel. The only thing that's probably a slight adjustment for the back-to-back in LA that's so common in the NBA, so many teams play Lakers, Clippers, or Clippers, Lakers. It's like going to New York and playing Knicks, Nets, or Nets, Knicks, doing the Texas Triangle in any sort of order. But what the LA situation always provided was the same court, the same locker room, the same lighting in the arena, being able to leave your stuff in the locker room. That's probably a logistics thing that's more important for the trainers than the players. But just an overall increased sense of familiarity. Now, what we're talking about at the Intuit Dome is the weird structure of what's behind the hoop with the wall that's really steep in one direction. And that's messing up free throws. So we can't use all of the same angles to saying what's the back-to-back like. We need more information for this to develop. Do teams have a worse shooting night going into it to Staples? Are they just below average from their normal Staples output? Is it drastically bad going from Staples to Intuit? We will find out. That's why we have Ian Toria on staff as not only a content producer here who's here in the back helping us out, but he's also an amazing researcher and research assistant. That's just, he's a math freak. That's why we brought him on. So Ian, let's start looking into that Intuit versus Crypto back-to-back spots. It'll probably take 2 years before I can say there's any reliable sample size to use. Maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5. Stay tuned into the podcast. That's pretty much it on the slate. I have no bets on Lakers Magic. We've seen the Lakers line open 4.5, get out to 5.5 after the Magic lost, go all the way down back to 3.5 in some overnight line moves on the Magic, and then climb back to 4.5. I know Drew is on Lakers minus 4.5. I have absolutely no opinions. And I know this total has had mixed signals. We know the Magic are a strong defensive team. We know the Lakers are not presenting like a strong defensive team. So, look at the Lakers Jazz thing that absolutely boofed me on Wednesday night when they scored a pace of 282 points in the second half. So Lakers total is super hard to predict, especially when they're paired against the Orlando Magic on a back-to-back in this spot. That is a game that I have no plays at all. Don't even have a sense of the direction that I even would like. But my plays on this card are as follows. Detroit Pistons on the money line and the under 221.5. Minnesota Timberwolves over 225.5. Utah Jazz, San Antonio Spurs over 222.5. Those are all recommended spots that I think you could still possibly play. Every one of those was played for 3/4 of a unit. So you're looking at 3 units right there, dispersed across 4 bets. And then we also have that Spurs minus 4.5 that I would definitely recommend skipping now that the Wembanyama news has changed the cap. Ian dropped in the chat that Scotty was elbowed by Jokic and fractured his eye socket. That's what happened to Scotty Barnes. Ow. All right. That'll do it for today's show. Please rate, review, subscribe, and listen to Patrick Beverly telling you to do exactly those things as we say, peace out.
Y'all subscribe to my podcast by y'all asking all these questions.
Don't forget to subscribe to the pod. And if you're a kid, listen to your parents. Listen to your parents.
Listen to your parents.
Subscribe to the pod.
Subscribe.
Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the pod, man.
Good, those are good.